everyone, and welcome back to Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Sofie, and today we have a special guest here with us to discuss putting yourself first through self-fulfillment, self-care, and setting healthy boundaries. She is energized, committed, and passionate about leading wellness conversations around life balance, self-care, plant-based nutrition, and whole life wellness. Her joy is when people adapt health and wellness methods that reduce stress and bring harmonious balance to their lives. She excels at equipping busy professionals with workable wellness advice and strategies that fit into their demanding lifestyles. She is also an author, whole life consultant, college instructor, and professional speaker whose articles have appeared in publications such as the New York Times, Balance Magazine, Choice Consulting, The Active Times, and American Holistic Health Association. She's been a guest on numerous podcasts and appeared on television, including a guest appearance on The Oprah Winfrey Show to talk about successful relationships. She has hosted her own podcast, Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, to bring the best inner tools and strategies to her listeners. Please welcome Diane Randall. Thank you so much for being with us today, Diane.
And Sophie, thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming on to the show. And as a self-care expert, just to jump right in and get into that main theme of today's episode, how can we start putting ourselves first?
Just to jump right in, the first thing is to acknowledge to yourself that you aren't putting yourself first, that you aren't making choices that support you in what you need for yourself so that you can show up for your family and everyone at your best. One of the things I like to talk about is a lot of times people say you're selfish if you're thinking about ourselves, and that's how we're taught that we are selfish. But I would advocate that it's self honoring to really put yourself first. And it's not an easy thing to do because once you acknowledge it, you really need to hone in on what exactly do you need. That's the first thing. The second thing is what once you establish what you need, what do you need from others? And it's asking for what you want. It's setting boundaries around what you want, and it is just taking that step to acknowledging and telling people what you want and need. That's the first few things that you need to do.
And when you say that self fulfillment and self care is actually self honoring, I know that you touched on what it means briefly, but can you dive in a little bit deeper with what exactly self fulfillment and self care means to you and looks like to you?
What self care means to me, and I'll just say that word first, it's what are the things that I do to take care of my inner presence, my inner self, as well as my outer exterior. So when I say self care, what are the things that I do to stay healthy? What are the things that I do to make sure my mind is balanced and that I'm present? What are those things I do to make sure that I am feeling my best inside and out at all times? And some examples could be self care is yoga. Yesterday, I went and got my facial because that tends to really relax me. It's taking nice long walks. It's all those things that not help me expend my energy, but what are those things that I do to just bring back energy and renewal so that I can feel balanced in my life?
Wonderful. I love that definition. And I think when I think about my own self care and when I practice self care, a lot of the time I use it as a method to overcome negative thoughts and negative self talk. And so, what are some strategies for overcoming negative talk or these negative thoughts other than self care?
For negative talk, I don't know if you necessarily overcome is a word, but it's how do you make self-talk your friend? Lots of things come up in your mind, but just because you have a thought, it doesn't mean that you have to believe it. So what I talk about to my clients and my students is when I have a thought, especially if it's a negative thought. Challenge that thought. What if that thought comes up? I don't qualify for a certain job that I want. The thing is, okay, is that thought true? How do you know that you don't qualify? It's taking that thought, I don't qualify. And I like to have people write that thought down. Why do you feel you don't qualify? And the question simply is it true? Is it true that you don't qualify? And then it's okay, why don't I qualify? That's one column. And the next one is, okay, here's how I'm qualified. Because deep down, underneath that thought, it might not be that you don't qualify. It may mean that there's some fear there of really stepping out and going after uh, what you want, that job, for example. So it's really going inside and just analyzing and checking in with those thoughts that you have, because you're never ever going to get rid of your thoughts. So the best thing is to challenge them and make them your friend. I still have crazy stuff run through my mind, okay? But I can observe that crazy thought and just let it pass. And that's a practice. That's a practice. I don't have to believe those thoughts. I can have those thoughts and then just let them go away. But all that's practice.
And as we're thinking about these thoughts, sometimes they can become roadblocks for creating the life that we desire, or as you say, for the life that we're trying to jumpstart. And so, what are some of the other roadblocks that people might find as they start to go down this road to implementing change within their life?
What happens all the time is, the barrier is the thoughts, but the barriers can also be the fear, a fear of making changes. A fear is a big barrier to change. What if it doesn't work? What if I'm not good at that job that I want? So what I say is just do it anyway. It's okay if you're scared. It's really okay if you're scared, because on the other side of that is that job that you walk through your fear to get. And on the other side of that, it is happy. It's happiness and peace. The barriers are really the barriers that we put in front of things, in front of what we want. So it's really looking at those barriers again and really asking yourself, okay, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? And really being quiet and silent so that you can really hear the answer.
I absolutely agree with you. I think self reflection is a big part of this process as we jumpstart our life and get on this path towards creating the life that we want, the life that we can't wait to wake up to in the morning. And what are some other ways that people can get back on this road towards dreams that they thought were once unattainable?
Oh, I love that you said that, but it's recognizing that dreams don't become reality unless we put some dates and times to them, right? A dream with dates and times is really a plan. So it's taking that dream, bringing it to the forefront, and I always say, and writing down what is that dream about? What do you want? Who would you be if you were living that dream? It's really integrating that message or the message of that dream inside of you by writing down what would your life look like if you could be that artist, if you could be the mayor of a certain city, for example. What would that look like? And it's taking those dreams, writing them down, and then writing affirmations on, if I could be the mayor of New York, I could fulfill my need of servicing the community in a greater way, for example. It's really taking those dreams, writing them down, creating plans and action steps, small steps to realize what you want for yourself and taking the action. Because you're right. If you don't take a plan without action and dates is just a dream and it will remain a dream. And every day doing something towards that dream, doing something towards that life that you want to create for yourself. So if you wake up tomorrow, the question is, what are you doing on a daily basis? It doesn't have to be anything big. It could be a phone call, it could be writing out a checklist, writing out a plan, writing out goals. Every day, what are you doing towards your dream or your goal? How close are you to having a plan? Because if you say, I'm not doing anything, then that dream will never become a reality.
And as we're on this road and we're talking about turning dreams into a reality and making goals happen, I think something that we fall into a lot is we work hard and we don't work smart. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is we don't take the time to build barriers or to set boundaries as we're going on this path. And how can someone begin to set these healthy boundaries to actually make these goals happen?
Well, again, it is looking at how you use your time during the day, looking at your priorities, and ask yourself, okay, how can I carve out an hour, let's say twice a week, to work on my dream or my goals or my plan? It's looking at your time, looking at your priorities, carving out that time, and then I'm asking you, what can you do to protect that time, to protect those 2 hours a week? It one example is, it may mean that instead of you coming home and cooking dinner, you really want to work on your plan. So it is making that hour sacred. And maybe if you have a family, you have older kids, for example, you ask one of your older children to uh, figure out dinner. Or if it's laundry, you ask someone to figure out laundry. Whatever it is around what you want to do, it is carving out that time, teaching everybody around you, the family, that this is your time, this is sacred. Because the boundaries that you protect, people will respect them once you teach them that this is so important. But it's up to you to protect that time. And you can do that with loving kindness. You don't have to be, mean about it, but it's letting people know that this is my time for what I'm trying to do. 2 hours a week. And this is, I call it sacred time for me.
I absolutely love that phrase, sacred time. I think I'm going to start using that from now on and like writing it on a little sticky note and putting it on my door and saying, sacred time, do not disturb. I could never find a name, at least, for just putting time into the podcast. Just to tell people that, hey, I'm in my zone right now. Don't bother me, don't touch me, just, let me focus on this, and I'll come out in 2 hours when I'm ready and I'm done working on my passion project. And I think also we can use this sacred time to work on our own personal development, even if it's towards career or towards emotional well being or anything to better ourselves. And I think that's something that a lot of our listeners want to start doing. And specifically, a trend that I've seen among our listeners is wanting to break unhealthy habits. And so, do you have any advice for our listeners on how they can break out of these unhealthy habits that just aren't serving them anymore?
When I talk about breaking unhealthy habits, it's really around breaking habits that no longer serve you in your life in this moment. For example, if you've been going to this meeting after work once a month for the past 5 years, the meeting is, you go there, it's 2 hours. And in your heart and in your mind and your body, you're just showing up for no reason. The value of going to that meeting, it just is just no longer uh, what you need. So it is breaking the habit of doing things that just don't serve you in the moment. So I talked about that sacred time. So if you break those unhealthy habits, things that don't serve you, whether it's a meeting, whether it's having a friend that you've had from childhood and the relationship is nothing more than the fact that you know this person from childhood, you no longer have anything in common. That is also an example of an unhealthy habit to break, because guess what? When you break these unhealthy habits, you are really bringing more time and energy into your life to do those things that really matter to you in this moment.
I like how you talked about that even in friendships, this can exist. And I think that there's an example I had put into my first episode about this concept of expired friends, expired people in your life, and how sometimes people are going to expire in your life and they just don't serve a purpose anymore. They're not making you a better person. They're not adding value to your life. They're battery drainers rather than battery boosters. And I think that that is something that absolutely rings true when you talk about setting boundaries and, that it's okay to let people go and say, hey, look, this isn't working for me. I need to let this person go or let this habit go or let, this thing I'm spending extra time on go. And I think that's a wonderful thing that I hope everyone can do or at least start to recognize. And I appreciate you talking about that because it drills my messaging in there that, hey, we need to think about this before we start becoming better versions of ourselves. We have to think about who's in our life and who's influencing this better version of ourselves that we're trying to create. And if we have negative energy all around us, then we can't do that. We can't be a better person. We can't go after what we want in life because we're surrounded by negativity.
Well, and it's really you, not you, but you in the big world, understanding and knowing that okay, this relationship is complete. I'm complete with this relationship because just like you said, sometimes when you stay in any kind of every relationship for too long, that's when the negativity starts. You know what I mean? Because you didn't recognize that it has come to a completion. I remember a friend I had from 14 years old, and I had all these, we had nothing in common anymore. I mean, it had been over 30 years. Nothing in common other than the fact that I knew her since I was 14. But knowing in my heart, mind, body, everything that we have nothing in common. Nothing. And it's okay to feel complete. All relationships aren't meant to be forever. And once we understand that and know that it's not something you should feel bad about, because what happens is it does start bringing negativity if you know that this relationship is no longer a relationship that supports the both of you. Then that's when the negativity and the drama and all those other things start coming, I believe. I'm learning, still learning. If you don't recognize this, it doesn't mean that you stop talking to this person. Okay, it does not have to mean that, but maybe you have space, what I call space, you know, that you talk to this person on your own terms, whatever that is. Or it could be a scenario where, you know what, I probably won't talk to this person ever again. But I'm not, it's knowing that there's no hard feelings. I'm not angry. I just know, I just have that feeling that this relationship is complete for whatever reason.
Absolutely. And to wrap up, what is one thing that our listeners should take away from this conversation?
The one thing that the listeners could take away is that they could start changing things for themselves tomorrow. The first thing I would ask the listeners to do is sit quiet in silence and just ask yourself, what do I really want? And see what comes up. You may be surprised.
I couldn't agree more about the fact that tomorrow you can start. There's a quote that I absolutely love. It's that every day we are presented with two options, and that's to either evolve or repeat. And as you say, that when we start thinking about what we want, we have to start choosing to evolve and go, hey, this is what I want. My current habits, my current patterns, they are not going to get me to that destination. So something has to change. I need to evolve. And absolutely, to all of our listeners, tomorrow morning when you wake up, take that time for yourself. Light a nice candle, put on some nice music, do something relaxing, and just think about what you actually want in life and how you're going to get to that destination. And with that being said, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I look forward to listening back to this and taking in all of your wonderful wisdom. Thank you, Diane.
Well, thank you for having me, Sophie. It's been a great conversation.
That concludes this podcast episode. Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying our show, you can also visit our website, claimyourpotential.com, to access our blog, listen to previous and future episodes, leave a review, and subscribe to our newsletter. For more content, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Claim Potential for inspiration, episode and blog post announcements, episode excerpts, along with other content for you to reach your full potential. A free way to support our show is by leaving it a rating and review on the podcast streaming platform of your choice. If you're not sure how to do this, you can head over to the Leave a Review page on our website for instructions. Thank you, everyone, and tune in next time where we'll continue to learn how you can claim your potential.